What's going on, y'all? Welcome to episode 23 of the Fight Night Forecast, where we highlight, recap, and cover all things boxing. I had to rep a little bit of MJ for episode 23. Let's get right into it. We had obviously a very big weekend last weekend. We had the Canelo Alvarez and Charlo fight. But we'll hold off just 1 second. We're gonna get into this 1 second. But first, I'm gonna cover. We had Jordan Thompson and Jai Opetaia. They fought at cruiserweight over the weekend across the pond. When I watched the weigh-ins of this fight, I knew a little bit about Jordan Thompson. I know Opetaia is the cruiserweight champion. When I looked at it though, I was like, man, this Jordan Thompson kid is the real deal, And I'm not saying that he's not now, but I looked at him. He had a 4-inch height advantage. Dude's yoked out of his mind. Looks crazy good. Opetaia obviously is a switch hitter. Fights in southpaw a lot, so he's kind of a tricky fighter to fight. But when I saw Jordan Thompson, I was like, man, this guy has a shot. But it turned into kind of an Opetaia clinic, man. Jordan Thompson could not get his distance down. I think the switch hitting had a lot to do with that. Just kind of threw him off. And, Thompson's really young, and he's only like 15-0. Not a deep amateur background. And, Opetaia was a Australian Olympian in 2020. Actually, he might have been New Zealand or Australian, one of the two. He was an Olympian, had a deep amateur background. And it just seemed like this fight turned into just kind of a case of maybe just a little too early for Thompson. I think he's going to bounce back. I think he's going to be a good cruiserweight, possibly even a heavyweight as he kind of ages a little bit, because he's got a big frame, man. Big dude. But yeah, great fight. Ended up in a third round knockdown, and then the following round, Opetaia finished it off with a ref stoppage in the fourth. But yeah, it was a good fight though. It was cool to see, a southpaw like Opetaia. I think he's predominantly southpaw, but he's switching back and forth. But it was cool to see that we had a southpaw that was like bringing it to him. You know what I mean? He reminds me a lot of like a Janibek kind of thing, where it's like, a lot of southpaws, they kind of use that trickiness to their advantage, right? Like the southpaw advantage is that you don't, as an orthodox, you don't fight a lot of southpaws, right? So it was cool to see like he had this like different kind of southpaw style where he's like, nah, I'm gonna bring it to you. And he was like, from round one, I mean, he had at one point, in the first round, it looked like Thompson was ready to get out of there, but he was saved by the bell. And honestly, the second round was the same way. And we're gonna be real, probably the third round, but nonetheless, I think Thompson's gonna bounce back. I'm a fan. I know he lost, but I became a new fan. So, and I followed both guys on Instagram actually for a little bit, and I didn't realize, that they had worked their way up to fight each other, which is great. But again, I think it was just a little too early for Thompson, and I think he's gonna bounce back big in the future. So, all right, let's get into it. I know y'all have been like, man, chomping at the bit. Canelo and Charlo. Let's get into the undercard first. We had Elijah Garcia, who put on a phenomenal knockout performance at middleweight. He looked really good. He came out. He's calling out all the big names at 160. He's young too. He's like 20 or 21 or something like that, or just turned 21 or something. So if he keeps looking that good and moving forward, I see some big fights for him coming up in at middleweight. Before that, though, I meant to mention this. We had Kermel Motan. He had his pro debut at 17 years old, which you are allowed to do in Las Vegas, I believe. And he's one of Floyd's fighters, and he looked good. First fight. It's amazing to see. He's a 17-year-old. He's a kid, man. Like literally a kid. Went out there in one of the biggest stages. It wasn't televised, and there probably wasn't a lot of the crowd wasn't there yet because it was the prelims. But nonetheless, man, he went out there and he rocked it. He seemed really calm, smiling in the dressing room, all that stuff. So it's probably pretty easy to smile when you got Floyd in your corner. But nonetheless, he looked really good, and I'm excited to see what's happening for him in the future. A lot of people are kind of hating a little bit because Floyd jumped in a couple times during the press conference and kind of made it about himself or whatever. But I'll link the clip here for you.
Did I not beat the most world champions?
Yes, you did.
Okay. And in the least amount of fights?
Yes, you did.
Who got the highest gate?
Floyd Mayweather.
Who made the most money?
You did.
Who was the most accurate fighter of all time?
You were.
So it's basically saying that...
The greatest of all time.
Okay.
But, Floyd's Floyd. It's like, what are you going to do? And that's kind of what you got to deal with whenever you... So Floyd's like this umbrella, where he's like he did the same thing with Tank, right? And made Tank into what he is today, a lot of people think. And it's kind of a double-edged sword. You got to deal with Floyd in the fact that it pushes you further along in your career. But it also kind of halfway becomes about Floyd. You know what I mean? So it's just one thing you got to deal with when you sign with Floyd and you train at TMT Gym and all that. But, nonetheless, he won his fight. He looked like he had a good time. So, let Floyd, be Floyd. And it is what it is. A lot of people, I had some friends hit me up. They were like, man, that's bogus that Floyd did that, and somebody needs to call him out for that. And it's like, what do you, at the same time, it's like, what are you going to do? It's Floyd Mayweather. He's still one of the biggest draws of the sport. Everyone still compares themselves to Floyd, right? So we're just too close to his era still to be able to be like, hey, Floyd, you need to, go on, get. But yeah, nonetheless, pretty good. The next we had Jesus Ramos and Erickson Lubin on that card, and that was a very sticky decision that they came to in the 12th round. Erickson Lubin got the upset, in case you guys didn't watch. Ramos was definitely the busier fighter, and I think personally probably the better fighter that night. Lubin didn't do a lot on the inside, and Ramos really brought the heat to him. Lubin moved well, and I will say this: he moved pretty well, and he had pretty decent defense, right? I think what the judges saw was a lot of those punches that kept Ramos so busy didn't really land on Lubin. A lot of them didn't, and I think that might have been part of what influenced the judges' decision on that. I think both guys are so competitive at junior middle, and I think that, we'll see big fights from both of them, and Lubin proved, he said multiple times at the post-fight press conference that he does not want to be a gatekeeper in that division. So he's like, I'm trying to prove that I'm still out here. I'm doing this. And, he's had that loss to Sebastian Fundora, but really other than that, he has a pretty good record. So we'll see what happens. Ramos took the defeat like a true champ. He said he wants to get back to the gym, fix it. And I think he admitted, I feel like those last few rounds I did take my foot off the gas and I shouldn't have done that. But he goes, he thought he was so far up ahead on the card that it didn't matter. And I think at that point he was, but he took those rounds off. Lubin kind of stepped up. Lubin saw that he kind of I think he may have even punched himself out a little bit, like with how busy he was in those first, 5, 6, 7 rounds. But Lubin obviously did enough in a couple of those first rounds to win over a couple of judges, and then he kind of took over those last, I'd say 4 or 5 rounds. Lubin took over a little bit. So still controversial decision, but that just goes to show that you never know what the judges are actually looking at, and that's one thing Ramos said. He goes, I'm going to do my best to not leave it to the judges anymore. But it is what it is. Lubin won. Ramos is going to come back better. I think Lubin's going to continue on his path, and we'll see what's next for both those guys. Let's move on to the co-main. We're almost there. I know y'all are chomping at the bit. Ugas and Mario Barrios. Now, this was a good bout. Really good bout, and a good step up, I think, for Mario Barrios. He's he's a tough fighter and he's really good. And he had that loss to Thurman, and he lost obviously to Tank. But it's like he's just getting better and better. I feel like every fight, I feel like I see him, and I think he's going to be doing big things at welterweight. I know it's kind of tough right now. The landscape's kind of weird, but I could see him fighting. I could see him fighting like a Boots Ennis and making it competitive, or a, I don't know. I mean, he's got fights coming up. Like he's got some big fights coming down the pike for sure, and I think that tonight just solidified that. Ugas, despite aging a little bit, Ugas kind of had a little bit of urgency to kind of make this last title run. But his eye, became a problem, and you could tell like he almost got like the back end of the fight almost every round before the round started. The ref called him over to the doctor, and the doctor had to look at his eye and all that. So I think that kind of became the story of that fight. And I think Barrios's cardio was nuts. I mean, he looked fresh in the 12th round. He looked like he could box another 12 rounds in the post-fight interview in the ring. But, I think there's definitely some big fights coming for Barrios down the pike. Title shots for sure. And I'd like to see what's next for Ugas. So do I think he's done? I don't know. I think with his eye, he definitely needs to get that, taken care of. And towards the end, he was doing all kinds of weird stuff, like spitting his mouthpiece out. He lost a point for that. And I don't know. I think either way, if Ugas wants to continue, I think that he could have some big fights on the horizon. But if he's also done with the sport, nothing to hang your hat on. Champion, beat Manny Pacquiao. What's there? And of course, he had the whole story of him escaping Cuba and all that. So it's like, that dude's been through a lot. Nothing to hang your hat on if he decided to hang the old gloves up. But I think that either way, I'm excited to see what's next for him also. Let's get into it. Canelo and Charlo, the main event. Not necessarily what we all expected it to be, but nonetheless, Charlo proved that he could hang in there and fight with the best of a Division II weights higher than him. I think he really got in there and realized the power of Canelo, and I think it just turned into like he just kind of got overwhelmed and went into survival mode. He had a few glimpses of good shots where he put together some combinations on Canelo, but other than that, it turned into just like he was surviving. He had that knockdown later in the fight from that overhand right from Canelo. I believe that was the 7th round. But other than that, I think he did fine. And he took a lot of hard shots, especially ones on the body, on the arms. It upset me a little bit because it just didn't seem like he tried to win. It just seemed like he got in there. Maybe the first couple rounds is like, all right, I'm going to feel out this game plan. Next thing you know, it just turned into survival mode, So, and I know I'm not alone on that. I have a lot of friends on social media and whatnot. A lot of my listeners, supporters said the same thing to me. They were like, hey, man, it just didn't seem like he tried, But, he got in there and did the thing, which unfortunately, a lot of us would not be able to do the same. So we can hate all we want, but he went in there and did the damn thing. And, he survived. And I think his plan is to go back to 154. Obviously, he called out Terrence Crawford.
Hey, I want to fight Terrence Crawford. That. I can fight Terrence Crawford at my weight division. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I know he's somewhere around this joint.
He's over here.
Yeah. I'll fight Terrence Crawford. Yeah. Let him fight Earl Spence or whatever they got going on. Get that out the way. I'm waiting. I'm about to get back right in training. Tell him don't worry about it.
In that post-fight interview in the ring, and we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I could see it, but it's like after this performance with Canelo, I don't think a lot of people want to see that. They don't want to see him and Terrence Crawford because they're afraid the same thing's going to happen that happened with Canelo. So I think that took kind of a big hit to him and his brand. But big money fights are big money fights. Would I watch Canelo Crawford or Charlo Crawford? Yeah, I'd watch it. Would I watch Canelo Crawford if that happens? Yeah, but Canelo also said in the post-fight interview that that Crawford's not in his plans.
You know, I always say if the fight make sense, why not? But he's not in the plan. I don't know right now. I just gonna enjoy this fight, and you gonna know what is next for sure.
So I think he's got some business to handle at 168 when it comes to Benavidez. And really, at the end of the day, I hate to say this because I was excited for the fight, but at the end of the day, I think we could have done without seeing that. You know what I mean? Maybe that's kind of a hot take alert. But I think that we could have done without seeing that. I think we could have just seen Tim Tszyu fight Jermell Charlo, and I think that we could have seen Canelo just fight Benavidez. You know what I mean? But I think Benavidez is coming up next anyway, but after he gets through his next fight, but with Andrade. But I think we could have done without seeing that. And I hate to say that, but it just wasn't what anybody thought it would be. Most of Jermell's fights are all action-packed and, more of a brawler style, and he just completely kind of switched it up. But which I get it. When you gotta fight Canelo, you have to make adjustments, So it is what it is. Nonetheless, it happened. I'm happy with it. Canelo is now won his 60th fight. So, he's getting up there with Julio Cesar Chavez to be one of the best Mexican fighters on the planet. But yeah, we'll see what's next. I really do think it's going to be Benavidez at 168 for Canelo. Just, based off of what the fans want to see, and his post-fight ring interview, he mentioned, he's ready to fight anybody.
And when will we see this Canelo next? Cinco de Mayo against who?
Cinco de Mayo, whoever, I don't care. We wanna see who's next.
Benavidez, perhaps?
I don't know, but I don't fucking care.
And I think now's the time. I think now is the time to do it. If you're Canelo, you looked pretty good off that on that Charlo fight. You looked healthy. Seems like he finally got his hand right. Still didn't. Moving back to my keys from last week, still didn't see a lot of head movement, right? But we did see faster feet. He was lighter. He came in a lot leaner this time. I think that helped his speed a lot. So I don't think, did we see Danny Jacobs 2019-ish Canelo? No, but I did think we saw the best Canelo we've seen since Saunders Plant-ish. You know what I mean? And that's a good thing. And I hope I watched a lot of Showbiz, and Showbiz talks about how if you look at most great fighters, they kind of have this small decline, then a quick blip, and then a big decline. I hope that's not the case for Canelo, but that Father Time's always undefeated, unfortunately. And but I think if he's gonna fight Benavidez and solidify himself at 168, now is the time to do it. I know he just had his third title defense as an undisputed, which I think is a record for the 4-belt era, which is amazing. Another accolade to put on his record. But I think now's the time to do it. He's got to fight Benavidez now when he's healthy and 100%. He's going to be able to rest. I think they're wanting to do that. They're wanting to do that in May for Cinco de Mayo weekend. So it might be a minute before we see Canelo in the ring again. But I wouldn't be surprised if Canelo takes maybe something in between. But if he takes that rest all the way till May, I mean, that's a good amount of time, and he could really rest and get his whatever, if he does have any nagging injuries from that last fight, get those healed up and be the best he can be for Benavidez. I think he's going to need to be the best he can be for Benavidez because I think Canelo probably ends up winning it, but Benavidez is definitely going to be one of his toughest fights that he's had as of late, for sure. Way tougher than Jermell, unfortunately. But yeah, what's next for Jermell Charlo? I think he's got to go back and fight Tim Tszyu. He doesn't have that. He doesn't have undisputed anymore because he lost, I believe, the WBO to Tim Tszyu. That was like as soon as the bell rang for Canelo, they wanted to be able to do the undisputed versus undisputed. But as soon as that happened, the bell hit. The WBO now became Tim Tszyu's due to lack of fighting mandatories. So Tim Tszyu, which I'll tell you later, he's got a fight coming up on the 14th of October, I believe. But I think after Tim Tszyu fights that, he's got to go back and fight him to get his belts back. I know he mentioned Terrence Crawford. I think it's more likely that Jermell fights Terrence Crawford than Canelo, but I don't think Terrence Crawford wants to fight him unless he has undisputed. That's the one thing that, probably draws Crawford into fighting Jermell, especially after that last performance. I mean, it's not like it's going to be I don't know, 154 might be different too. I hate to, make predictions on, off of somebody's last fight when they've been so good before, especially jumping 2 weight divisions. But I think the fans, at least, are going to be more interested in it becoming a 154 undisputed bout, and a possibly Crawford becoming a 3-time undisputed. I think that's really the draw to that fight. You know what I mean? So I think honestly he's got to go. Jermell's got to go see Tim Tszyu and get that squared away. And then once they get that squared away, maybe we see a Terrence Crawford fight sometime next year, possibly. Because I think Crawford and Errol need to still kind of duke out what they're duking out, and they haven't decided yet what their full plan is on that, whether it's going to be 154 or 147, or if it's just not going to happen at all, or whatever. So I think that timeline might work out perfect. I think if they have their rematch and Terrence Crawford wins the rematch, boom, Tim Tszyu fights Jermell, and Jermell pulls that out or whatever, then boom, we got that timeline almost lining up perfectly. Could be totally messed up if if Tszyu wins, or if Errol wins, but maybe we see Errol and Tim Tszyu. Who knows? I mean, you never know. It's just, that's the beauty of boxing. You never know what's going on. So, nonetheless, it happened. It's over with. Let's move on to what's next for both fighters. So, absolutely. So let's move into we got some upcoming bouts this weekend. Actually, this weekend's a pretty good weekend. October 7th, across the pond, we got Lee Wood and Josh Warrington, two very, very tough guys. I personally leaning towards Lee Wood, but it's for the WBA featherweight title, and it really could go either way. Both guys are tough, skilled fighters. On the co-main of that, we have Terry Harper and Cecilia, Brækhus? Cecilia Brækhus. Terry Harper, obviously, she's a dog, so we'll see how this fight goes. Can't stack a better co-main on that one, too, especially in the women's division right now. But also on October 7th, we have Zurdo Ramirez and Joe Smith Jr. They're actually, I thought they were going to fight at 175. That's normally what they fight at, but this is actually at cruiserweight. So I don't know if it's a catch weight somewhere in between, or if they're actually doing it at 200, but nonetheless, unfortunately, 175 is kind of locked up right now with Beterbiev, and waiting for that fight with Callum Smith, and then Bivol got the other title. So I think that, they fight at cruiser real well. But I think, nonetheless, this is going to be a fun fight, because Joe Smith is a crazy power puncher, and Zurdo is mad skilled. So I think I'm actually really hyped for that fight. That's probably going to be my favorite fight this weekend. And it's not even a title fight, and there's 2 other title fights that I'm about to get into. But that's probably my favorite one. I'm excited to see it. Big fan of Joe Smith, honestly, and Zurdo too. So, absolutely. And then that's going to be in Vegas. Then over in Canada, we have Evelyn Bermudez fighting Kim Clavel? Something like that, Kim Claviel. That's 10 rounds for the IBF Women Junior Flyweight. That's going to be a good title bout there. And then also on the same day, we have CP Fresh Smart versus Yudai. I'm going to butcher this one too. Yudai Shigoka. And that's for the WBC strawweight title. And that's overseas too. I want to say somewhere, maybe Japan, Tokyo. Is it Tokyo? Maybe something like that. So yeah, decent little weekend. We got 3 title fights and pretty much a title eliminator, most likely, probably for Zurdo and Joe Smith, or at least to get them back in contention. Or maybe they're both moving up to cruiserweight. I don't know. That could be something we see down the road in cruiserweight. But yeah, so we got a good upcoming weekend. Excited for that. Let's look at some key October dates, and then we're going to wrap this up and be a quick episode. Key October dates, October 14th, the Boogeyman at 160, Janabek. is fighting Vincenzo Gualtieri, and that's going to be a WBO and IBF unification bout at middleweight. Gualtieri, I believe, is the IBF. So yeah, it's going to be on ESPN, and I think it's going to be a good bout. But it's tough to vote against Janibek right now, man. He is killing it in that division, and looks insanely good. A lot of young talent on that card. We got Keyshawn Davis, Kelvin Davis, Allen Kid Kansas Garcia. Follow him on Instagram. Shout out. Richard Torres. He's fighting Duke Reagan. So we got a lot of the 2020 Olympians on there. Those the young firepower. So also October 14th. That's in 2 weeks. We have Tim Tszyu and Brian Mendoza, which I feel like Brian Mendoza just got out of the ring recent. I'm pretty sure it was like early September he just fought. So he's having a quick turnaround for the WBO junior middleweight title. So that'll be obviously the title that Tim Tszyu just got because of Jermell not fighting his mandatories. So I think that's going to be a good battle. Brian Mendoza, he's up and coming. I'm pretty sure he's the interim, I want to say, or interim WBC maybe or something. Yeah, he just won that pretty recently. And so I'm happy to see it. Two of the best in the division fight each other. And I think, maybe whoever wins that might end up fighting Charlo, so Charlo can get his WBO strap back and then look forward to maybe fighting some, bigger names down the road. October 21st, we have Jack Catterall and Linares. I think this is kind of a title eliminator in some ways at 140, at least to gain their way back up, because we had Catterall. Obviously he had that very sticky loss, very controversial loss against Josh Taylor was when Taylor was undisputed, actually. And then we have Jorge Linares. He's obviously getting a little bit older, but he just a couple years ago, he rocked Haney, had Haney doing the spaghetti dance. But yeah, so both guys are competitive. I think they're trying to claw their way back into title contention. And then October 28th, Fury and Ngannou is going down. Obviously we'll have more on that. Tyson's in the corner of Ngannou. That's kind of some new news on that. But yeah, that's going to be a pretty big bout over in Saudi Arabia. So let's slide into announcements real quick. Speaking of Fury and Usyk just signed a deal, which I don't know exactly how that's going to work if Ngannou were to win for some reason. But yeah, I'm pretty sure the title's on the line. Maybe I might be wrong on that. If I'm wrong, let me know. But yeah, they supposedly signed a deal for December or January, date to be determined. But I'm excited to hear that, because we've been hearing all kinds of crazy stuff about Fury wanting to be a movie star instead of undisputed and all kinds of stuff. So the fact that we're seeing that deal signed is a big deal. I don't know if Usyk's planning on fighting anybody in between then. Probably not, I'd assume. But obviously Fury's got to handle his business on the 28th and win that. That might be even a stipulation in the contract or something. If Fury wins on the 28th, then the deal moves on or whatever. So you never know what they do behind the scenes anymore. Another announcement: Garcia is fighting Oscar Duarte at 140. That's going to be down in Texas, and then we have Jesse Bam Rodriguez. He's fighting Sonny Edwards, and that's sometime in December, I want to say too. And that's for the WBO and IBF unification in that division. And yeah, so that's really all I got for y'all, man. What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. Boxing is at one of its best.
I love boxing so fucking much.
In the past, year or two, or longer even, we're getting these big fights. Got more big fights coming up for y'all. Man, and I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna be right here covering it for y'all, all of it. I'm so hyped. I'm so blessed, man. We just hit 200 subscribers. I believe we're now at like almost 230, 235 or something like that. So, man, I'm so blessed, man. Thank y'all so much. I'm extra blessed, man, because it took us about 20 episodes to get to 100, and now it's taken us 2.5, almost 3 to get 150 more subscribers. The snowball's rolling. I'm excited about it. I'm blessed to have y'all listen to me, man, and I'm blessed to have this opportunity. So I'm gonna keep bringing boxing to y'all. That's what I'm gonna do. But yeah, hit me up. Talk to me in the comments. Let me know if there's anything else, that y'all want to see maybe a little bit more of. Oh, question of the week. Question of the week. I meant to tell y'all question of the week. Would you rather see Terrence Crawford fight Canelo or Jermell Charlo? Question of the week. Let me know in the comments. Tell me what you think. So other than that, if you've been watching here for a little bit and you're not subscribed, give it some thought. Bless me with another subscriber. Join the gang. Let the gang grow. We're just trying to do gang activity out here. Watch a little boxing, talk about a little boxing, argue about a little boxing, because hey, argument's part of relationships. So haters are always welcome in this podcast. Y'all can come hate all you want. Yeah, I'm here for it. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, hit the post notifications, argue with me in the comments, whatever you want to do, and we will see you in the next one. Peace.